Hello, everybody, and greetings in the name of Jesus Christ, our King and our Lord. I first want to say I so miss you and being there with you physically and us being connected as we normally would is a great sacrifice to me. And I hope you're doing well in this midst of this pandemic and the vacillating statistics that are coming in, particularly in Dallas as the pandemic numbers escalate exponentially right now. In Dallas, I want to encourage you to be careful and to take it seriously because it is on the rise, and we have to give the most earnest heed to protect ourselves, particularly those of you that are African Americans. We are dying much more rapidly as a result of the pandemic than our white brothers, and we have to give the most earnest heed to taking care of that. We're excited to talk to you today. I asked my son, Dexter, to be a guest here today. Dexter, would you say a word and greet the men?
Well, I certainly hope all is well, especially for this time that we're in as a nation. I know it's very difficult, but hopefully we can bring some solace for you all. It's much needed right now.
It's a very difficult time indeed. Lots been going on, particularly in our country and in our community and in our world. And you've got a lot of emotions to manage, from the pandemic to the social justice issues, which hit us. Both of them hit us unusually hard. The images seem to be very painful experiences for us to face. But in the midst of that, there's still Jesus, and there's still the blood and the cross and the power of the Lord. I really believe that we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
I believe we're going to be all right. I think it's a conversation. It's a tough conversation. It's a painful conversation, but it's much like a conversation in a marriage. If you get to the point that you stop talking, the marriage is doomed. As long as there's some level of communication, it might be emotional, it might be painful, but conversation is good. When you stop talking, that's when the marriage is doomed. So hopefully our country will have this conversation and move forward. Thankfully, that's not the conversation we're going to have with you today. We're going to have a conversation, as this is Fatherhood Saturday. We're going to be talking about fatherhood and what it means to be a father. And I looked up a definition of a father, and it meant to be a co-parent in the relationship and the development of a child. And that is a collaborative effort. It's a very important effort. To those of you that are not fathers, you are the sons of fathers, then you may be a father. And so there's still going to be some good things in it for you to talk about. I asked my son to be a part of this. One, because we realize we're dealing with multi-generational audience. And also he's my proof that that I'm not just talking. He can bear witness and share his perspective, and it's going to be interesting. I thought I'd start it off. I pulled some statistics. They're social statistics involving fatherlessness, and I'll give you just a few of them. The percentage of children without a father in the United States is about 43%. It's much higher, I'm sure, in the African American community, but even in the general perspective of all of America, that means almost 50% of kids are growing up in homes without a father. If a child has a father in the home, they are 40% less likely to repeat grade school. Teenage repeat offenders, arsonists, is 90% more likely to be from an absent father household, according to Psychology Today. The percentage of minors in prison who grew up without fathers is 85%. 85% of kids in correctional institutions grew up without father. Kids with fathers who are involved in their lives are more likely to do better in school than kids who don't have a father in the home, according to the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Preschoolers with an involved father figure develop better verbal skills, according to the United States Department of Health and Human Services. Girls are more likely to have children as teenagers if they grow up without a father. Kids experience fewer behavioral issues in school when a father figure is active in their life. Girls develop stronger math skills when growing up with a father in the home, according to United States Department of Health and Human Services. Boys get better grades in school when a father figure is active in their life, according to United States Department of Health. On and on and on makes a good argument as to why we matter. We do matter. We make a difference. And my son and I are going to talk collaboratively just about that in general. I'm gonna start off with something that I didn't mention to you about Dexter, but I happened to be listening at something on YouTube with Dave Chappelle meeting Dr. Maya Angelou, and Dr. Maya told this story about coming out of a hotel or someplace, and two or three black men were going at it, and they were about to fight, and it was rambunctious, and they were cursing, and they were agitated, and it was getting out of hand. And she walked up to one of the young men and said, "Can I have a word with you?" And he said, "No, get out of my face. Get out of the way. I got stuff to do." She said, "I just a word for a minute." She said, "I just want to say something to you for a minute, and you go and do whatever you want to do." And after going back and forth, the young man finally said, "Go ahead and say what you got to say and get out of the way." And she said, "I just wondered, had anybody ever told you how important you are? Has anybody ever told you that you matter, and that your ancestors bled and died and fought and killed for right for you to breathe air? Has anybody ever told you that you are the dream that they had of the future? Has anybody ever told you that you're valuable and that you're gifted and that you're creative? Has anybody ever told you how very, very special you are, and that there'll never be another you in all the world? There'll be thousands and thousands of babies born, but there'll never be another you in all the world. Has anybody ever told you that they love you?" She said, "Because I love you, and I wanted to tell you that I love you. And I wondered, had anybody ever really told you that they loved you, and that you're powerful, and that you're important, and that you matter?" And as she kept talking, the young man started crying. He went from ready to fight and kill to in tears. And she didn't know at that time that this was an important conversation, but the young man was Tupac. And she didn't know who Tupac was. But the conversation she had with him is a good startup for where we are today. Too many young men and young girls have never been told or taught that they matter, that they're important, that they can make a difference, that their parents and their grandparents and great-grandparents and forefathers dreamed of them, that they stand on a legacy that's bigger than themselves, that they are gifted, and that they are talented, and that they make a difference in the world. The absence of significance is a very painful thing to have to confront and live through. And that kind of conversation that she had with him, though she was a woman and not even his mother, is the kind of conversations that fathers have with sons. And I wanted my son to talk about how our conversations affected him growing up, and how it shaped who he is.
So for me, you were essentially my North Star, the compass that I use to really help find my way in life. That person to challenge you and point you in the right direction, to let you know that you are a prince, that you come from somewhere, you come from something that has great significance, great meaning. Even just my name just to don me with your name was its own blessing. But the significance behind it is not just superficial. It has deep meaning, deep roots. And from those roots comes a level of persistence that has carried me all throughout my life. That's the significance that a father has played in my life. And when you bring up those statistics, it breaks my heart. And I just want to empathize with those people because I can only imagine the level of loss that someone would feel in those shoes, quite honestly. But what you're missing out on, hopefully we can help to bring that awareness to you, because it's not too late to have someone mentor you, to pour into you, even if you did not have a father. That doesn't really count you out for the race. My father grew up largely without having an active father figure in his life, but that informed, and I'm sure you can say this yourself, that informed a lot of his principles as a father. From that need, it helped him to become a stronger person, not just for the siblings before me, but to really instill these roots into his grandkids. So the value of having a father is priceless, quite honestly. I will always be reaping the seeds that you have sown into me. The conversations we've had at several different phases of my life have helped to push me further and further and further. And not just the conversations, the things that you modeled, more than the conversations actually, played a very pivotal role. You didn't need to tell me to get up and work and do all those things, but you modeled it, you know. There are a multitude of examples of us running around airports and doing all of this traveling and stuff like that. And as a kid, you know, you're just trying to keep up and you don't understand the significance until you have to go out there and hunt yourself. So like I said, you are that North Star for me.
It's funny you should say that. My father got sick when I was 10 and died when I was 16. But as a little boy, he carried me to work with him. And it almost seemed abusive at the time. My father ran a janitorial service and they would lock us into a store like a Walmart. It wasn't Walmart back then, it was Kmart. But they would lock us in the store and we would have to strip and wax the floors and get them dry and get them ready to open up in the morning. When they came to work in the morning, they would let us out. So there I am, a 10-year-old, 11-year-old kid locked up in a Kmart all night with a job. He put a Brillo pad in my hand and tell me to scrub the corners where the buffers missed. And that was my job. And he took it real seriously. If I didn't get it right, he was the first one to let me know. And he was hard to please. And he was verbal. If he wasn't pleased, he wasn't like physically abusive, but he was quite verbal if he wasn't pleased. And as a little boy, you wanted to please him. And much like Dexter described me, my father never so much told me to go to work. I just watched what he did. And when I got old enough to do it, the first thing I couldn't wait to go to work. I couldn't wait to go to work because that to me defined what a man was his work ethic. And whether it was loading his trucks up and running buffers up a ramp to put on the truck and winding up cable cords and extension cords and water hoses and all of that, he set the bar. He set the standard. It wasn't good till he said it was good. It wasn't right till he said it was right. He would undo it and redo it and be fussing at me and telling me how it ought to be done and telling me to take my hands out my pocket like I had $1 million in it. And I didn't at the time. And just doing things that helped me to understand something about a good work ethic. So it never occurred to me to be a bum. It never occurred to me to lay on the couch at home as a man. It never occurred to me, never for a minute did it ever occur to me to grow up and wander around trying to find something that I wanted to do because wanted was never in the conversation. You did what was necessary. You did what you were supposed to do, and that's what I did. And when my son came along, I was well in the process of parenting. I already had 2 older boys and 2 older girls, and he came along kind of at the end of the story. I described Dexter as the child of my old age, which makes real good sense right now when my hair is gray. But I had him when I was 38 years old, so I wasn't that old. But that's old for having a child. Yeah, come on now. Act right. And it had a lot to do with how I parented. The stage of life you're in has a lot to do with how you're parenting. I parented my younger sons when I was 24, and they came into my life when I was 24 years old. And there's a lot of difference between 24 and 38. So you grow as a father. You grow and you develop as a father. And you learn as a father. I heard Billy Graham say something that really leaped at me toward the end of his career, and he had traveled all over the world, literally all over the world, crusades like you would not believe. Billy Graham could pack out a football stadium in any city he went to. He was made huge altar calls, indescribable altar calls with thousands and thousands of people coming to Jesus on national TV, on regular television. I mean, if Billy Graham came to town, all the press would cover it. It wouldn't just be Christian press. And he'd written several books. He'd even done some television. He'd done some of everything. And I asked him, did he have any regrets? And he said, the one thing that I regret the most is that I didn't spend more time with my children. It wasn't that he didn't get to speak on a platform or address a president, though he addressed many. It wasn't some remote island that he never got to evangelize. It wasn't a certain amount of money he wished he had or a house he would have built. It was that he would have spent more time with his children, because the older you get, you begin to realize that your children are your wealth. They are your legacy. They're the only thing that you have that's going to matter eventually. You can't take the money with you. You're going to leave the house. Somebody's going to sell your car. They're going to box your clothes up in a bag and put it away somewhere or give it away. But your children are going to be standing there as a testimony that you existed. And I think it comes down to what a man values. It's what he puts his time into. And you learn that. You don't always start out knowing that, but you learn that. Most men who become fathers because of their mother. And a man knows how to relate to the mother. And often if the relationship doesn't go good with the mother, he leaves the mother and the children. The problem with that is, and I want the young men to hear me real good, maybe some older men too, the boy or the girl grows up feeling like, what was wrong with me that my father left me? And 90% of the time, I keep telling them, your father didn't leave you, he left your mother. He left your mother. And women don't give up children easily. In fact, often they won't allow you to see them. And legally, they won't allow you to see them if you're not paying child support. And little by little, whether it's by lack of resources or the foolishness of men not paying child support, or the inability of men to pay child support, whatever the reason is, the drug addiction, the alcoholism, the other relationships they get involved with and get married again, or whatever the reason is, there's not a backdrop for him to have a relationship with the child if he doesn't have a relationship with the mother. And so a lot of times the boy feels abandoned and loses self-esteem and says, I must be bad. He didn't love me enough to stay. You don't divorce a child, you divorce a mother. And so it does have ramifications on the child. But if there's any young men sitting out there now who are feeling like that anger that I see so prevalent with young men, sometimes all the way up into their 40s. They're angry with their fathers. They hate them, and they hate them because they weren't there for them. And I get it, and I understand it. They hate them because they played football with nobody in the stands. They played baseball and nobody was there to cheer them on, and all the other kids brought their dads, and they didn't have that, and it created a hole and a bitterness in their heart that I get. There's simple things that their mother didn't teach them. They don't know how to tie a tie, may not know how to ride a bike. Simple things can create a lot of pain in your life. But you have to realize as you grow older, you have to begin to understand that the story is more complicated than you and your dad. The story encompasses you, your dad, and your mother. There is a big difference between being a husband and being a father. Those are two different skill sets. Some men are better at being a father than they are at being a husband. Some men are better at being a husband than they are at being a father, and some men aren't too good at either one. I don't know what category you fall in. Both of them are a job of mammoth gorilla proportions. Both of them are a lifetime job. You spend an hour, 30 minutes, or 5 minutes in the bed, and all of a sudden you've got a baby for the next 50 years of your life. I gave all those different time zones so I could accommodate all of y'all.
Speak to the whole group.
I will leave nobody out of the discussion. But regardless of how long you lasted, you never last long enough in bed to cover how long you last as a father or as a husband. And at the end of the day, it's a lifelong job. It doesn't have immediate benefits and it doesn't pay initially. Often you don't feel appreciated. Often you don't feel valued because little kids with fathers, Dexter's an exception to this rule, but kids with fathers don't always appreciate having them because they don't know what it is not to have them. So they have nothing to compare it to. And it's only when they try to be one that they begin to see how tough it is. And sometimes because we internalize our pain, we are married to people who don't know that it hurts to be a husband and it hurts to be a man. And it's not easy. And you get beat up at work and you get beat up at home. And then you come to church and half time you get beat up in church and you're just beat up everywhere, especially if you go to a church where the pastor fusses all the time. You can't find a place where you're not beat up till you end up in the bed of somebody you're not supposed to be with. So we're going to keep it real with you. We're going to have a real conversation. We're going to have some fun. I enjoy talking to my son. He enjoys talking to me. We absolutely adore each other. We're very, very much alike. I thought we would start with this. Okay. So years ago, years before Dexter was born, when I was a little boy, my mother and father put me on a train to go to Washington, D.C., and I believe it was to the I Have a Dream speech for Dr. Martin Luther King. I actually remember the train ride better than I remember anything else because I was much more excited about the train ride than I was Dr. King. Fast forward 50 years later, I brought my son with me to the inauguration of the first Black president. It was blisteringly cold. You remember how cold it was?
Oh, God.
Yeah, it was blue cold. I mean, if you had toes, they might have fallen off in your shoes, and you couldn't even feel your feet. But I thought it was important enough to bring him, and there I was. He couldn't sit with me for security reasons because I was sitting close to about 8 feet away from President Obama when he was inaugurated, and I had just spoken in the chapel that preceded it. Probably one of the few times in my life I have been truly nervous speaking in a small chapel with all these dignitaries and officials. And I remember Oprah Winfrey being there and all these cabinet members and FBI and security around, and I had preached there that day, and then got on a train with Rick Warren and on a bus with Rick Warren and my son and Otis Moss Sr. and Otis Moss III, and we headed over to the inauguration. There I am sitting beside Colin Powell and right behind Aretha Franklin, as I remember. And my son was like in front of the stage to the left as we inaugurated the first Black president. It was deja vu to my father bringing me to see Dr. King. I was very proud to have him there and to give him that memory to tell his children about, to have that historical experience in our nation's history. Afterwards, because I had been a speaker that day, I was ushered on the red carpet at the Washington Post to have comments to the press about what this meant and what it was like. And we're outside in the cold, getting ready to get on the red carpet. Look at Dexter's face. and how old were you?
I would have to be about 14.
He's about 14 years old, okay. And I pulled him over to the corner and I said, okay, Dexter, just like this. Well, you tell him what I said. You tell him.
So quite literally, as we're pulling up to the inaugural ball, looking at the steps right there, my father looks at me and says, I'm going to lead things. What you do is you look them in the eye, shake their hand, shake it firm, and you just keep on going. So from there, we walk in onto the red carpet. And just to let you know, this is an event where there are literal presidents, former presidents. You have Oprah, Spike Lee, just all kinds of dignitaries. And this guy right here wants a 14-year-old to lead the conversation. Now, if you've ever been 14, I'm sure you've been in a nervous situation. If you were 14 at the inaugural ball, as Dexter Jakes in that situation, you probably wanted to fly home immediately because of pure nervousness. Now, my father's belief in me is the only thing that really propelled me forward in that situation, because my father will never put you in a situation, and all of my siblings can say this. And if you know him well, I'm sure you can say this. He'll never put you in a situation where he doesn't have absolute belief that you can do it. And more than the inauguration, though, was incredible. The most important thing that I walked away from all of that with was the fact that my father believed in me enough to put me on that type of a pedestal. I knew how important it was to him to even be there in that moment. So for him to trust me with no red carpet experience, it's not like I'm some superstar myself, but he trusted me. That really instilled a lot of the persistence I was just speaking of and the confidence that I have now. So, good God, I was a nervous wreck. Why would you do that to a 14-year-old? Can we talk about that?
Child abuse is child abuse. I didn't have a Brillo pad to put in your hand like my dad put in mine, so I put a mic in your hand, you know. It never occurred to me that you wouldn't do well. I wasn't nervous at all. I had every confidence that you would shine. I didn't even think much about you being nervous. I didn't think about what it felt like to be you. I felt like you could do it, you could handle it, and it would be your introduction to that world. And I put you out there, and he did it. He did excellent. He did phenomenal. I wasn't nervous, but I was so proud. I was so proud. My chest was stuck out. Oh, it was inflated, you know, just like I've been doing bench press for an hour and a half. And we made it through the line of the biggest. I mean, the Wall Street Journal, the Washington Post, everybody who was anybody was there. Entertainment Tonight, everybody was there. Extra, everybody, every outlet imaginable was there, and he had to shake hands with all of them, answer their questions, look them straight in the eye, look pleasant and smile, and handle it. And I'm standing right behind him, looking over his shoulder. They're going to ask me questions next. And you can feel it right now, can't you?
I can remember it. But like I said, the thing that brought my nerves down was your confidence.
Yes.
When I saw that you weren't freaking out, I was like, oh, he thinks I can do this thing. I remember there was a tornado that was happening when we lived not too far in Dallas, and we're looking at the water and the sky is turning purple and all of this is happening. And then I just look up at you, once again nervous. And then I see a certain calmness over your face. And you looked at me and said, I'm not nervous. You don't need to be nervous. And that was way before any of this happened. So in that moment, when I saw that there was a stillness and a calmness over you, it's like, maybe I can actually get through this.
Yeah. I think that story is important because I think it speaks to something that men don't always think of when it comes to raising children. It's not just about bringing home the bacon, and it's not just about correcting them when they're wrong, and it's not just about other things that you might think it's about. He told me later that the fact that I believed in him made him believe in himself. And that's what we want you to get out of the story, that your believing in your child has everything to do with them believing in themselves and finding a way to express it. It doesn't have to be on a red carpet, but finding a way to express that you believe in them and to put them in situations that they're ready for, that they can shine in front of you, builds up their self-esteem, builds up their confidence, and builds up your relationship with them. Because being a father is about a relationship. It's not about a check. It's not about Christmas gifts. It's not about birthday presents. All that's nice, but that's not what it's about. It's about building a relationship with the child. And if you're coming into a child's life in later years after being gone 10, 15 years, you can't come in that child's life as a disciplinarian. You can't come in that child's life because you don't have the foundation. You have to build a floor for love to stand on. And that's experiences you share with them and easing into that process gently. And if you married a woman and there is a child and the child doesn't know you as a father, you've got to be patient. You got to be wise, and you got to be careful, because Dexter and I are standing on 25 years of foundation. Okay, so 25 years of foundation, and if you don't lay that foundation right, it's hard to come in there overnight in a weekend or in 3 months or in the first year and set up and make up for 25 years of not being there in a year and start arguing and fussing and yelling and telling his mama you're not raising them right. Wait. You don't know me. You know, you haven't changed my diapers. You haven't pushed my tricycle. You haven't had no picnics with me. You didn't take me to the carnival. You didn't take me to the fair. We never been to Six Flags. We never been to Disneyland. You didn't help me put together a truck. You didn't sit down and help me put together a puzzle. All of those little things that look like nothing. Little things are big things. This is what I learned. This is what my children taught me. Little things are big things, and big things are little things. The things that I did that I thought would have the greatest impact on them, they say nothing about. I always use this as a reference. I bought my eldest son a piano, and I think I use it as a reference because it was so hard to do, and it was expensive. And I went through everything in the world to get it and surprise him, and it was what he wanted. And he had a fit. I mean, he went crazy. I thought he was going to asphyxiate at Christmas morning when we brought him downstairs, and there was this big bow on this piano. I thought I was going to have to call a paramedic for him. Fast forward 25 years later, it just never comes up. It just never comes up. It's not that he didn't love it at the time, not that he didn't appreciate it in the moment, but the things that my kids talk about around the dinner table teach me what mattered to them. And the things that matter to them have nothing to do with nothing you bought. It has everything to do with what you did. So fatherhood is an equal opportunity position. It's not easier to do it if you're wealthy. Sometimes I think it's harder to do because you're busier. It's not about stuff. It's about time. It's about investment. It's about moments, creating moments. We have all of these moments between us where we were, where we were. I laugh because I remember when you were wanting to play ping pong with me when we were in Mexico, and he had been to work with me all day on a project that I was working on, and he sat there quietly all day playing in a corner, just happy to be wherever his father was. Not realizing that I'm exposing him to business, but that was a side effect and an arbitrary experience of seeing you in leadership roles, that kind of thing. But his big payoff was for us to play ping pong afterwards when we got back to the hotel. Now, I am the worst ping pong player in the history of America. And I am a horrible ping pong player because my father never played ping pong with me, so it never was important to me. And we didn't have no ping pong table to begin with, and ping pong didn't come up on my radar, and I couldn't play. Yeah, truth be told, I couldn't play ping pong any better than him, and it might be arguable that you might have been better than me.
I was going to say, I don't know if I'm a great ping pong player, and I'm not too offended. I'm not too offended by you not being great at it.
Well, yeah. So the point wasn't being good at it. The point was being present.
Yeah,
it was something we did together, and he had a ball with that ping pong. You know, he had a ball with that ping pong and running after the ball and us chasing it and hitting it back and forth. And I think anybody who was watching us would have concluded that we were both completely dysfunctional. Completely. I mean, rehab dysfunctional. But it didn't matter because we were doing it together. And before the trip was over, I remember getting on the plane to come back and thinking, I'm busy trying to teach him how to be a man, and he's busy trying to teach me how to be a child again. And we both needed it. We
it
both
was class and empathy.
Yeah.
I think those type of moments kind of help to level the playing field where obviously you're my father and there's a certain pedestal that you will always be on, but it helped me to understand that we were on the same side. And then that makes any conversation that we have as a result of that more impactful. That doesn't mean that we don't disagree, but we learn to empathize. We can have a mutual understanding. We're on the same side. And I feel like frequently a child and their parent need to have that lesson in empathy. You and your kid can obviously sit on other sides of the spectrum, but at the end of the day, they need to know that you have a partner through thick and thin. There is unconditional love that survives all of that stuff.
And we didn't disagree till he was adolescent. But by the time he became adolescent, there was a floor poured, there was a foundation there.
Right.
So in the height of the disagreement, the one thing I wasn't going to do is go at him like he was an enemy. I would never do that. Whether he was wrong or I was wrong, I'm never going to turn my guns on him and attack him like I would another predator because he's my son. And I just wouldn't do that. You know, I wouldn't do that. And we have had some hot arguments, but I could count them on one hand and have fingers. But when we did, I would always stop shy of going for the throat because he's my son. And we've had a relationship and there's a foundation for it. And he's never disrespected me because I'm his father. And I think the most painful thing to go through is that high level of disrespect from your son. And if you've confronted that, you have to ask yourself honestly, did you lay the kind of foundation that won their respect? And let me say this about respect, because this is something that I learned from my children. Children can accept a flawed father. You don't have to be perfect. You have to be present. If you are present, they may get mad, they may get upset, they may be shocked, but present will override imperfections. No matter how bad the imperfection is, if you make the deposit when you need a withdrawal, there's something to draw from. You cannot withdraw from a bank where you haven't made a deposit. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I also think that takes a level of vulnerability that I'm not sure if that's in the contract of parenting. That rarely happens where a parent is vulnerable and that they have that level of a vulnerable relationship with each other. But I certainly concur with your sentiments.
Well, that vulnerability is for an appropriate time. We became vulnerable. I became more vulnerable as he became older. And he asked me, why didn't you talk to me sooner? And I said, it wasn't time yet. And I think that parents who get too vulnerable with little children damage them. You're sitting around having a drink with your child, smoking a joint with your child, bearing your secrets and issues with your child. Your child is not your therapist, it's your child. And exposing your children to the problems between you and your wife too soon, all that kind of stuff is damaging. It's damaging and detrimental to the relationship. Not irreparable, but damaging. I've got a few things, because I don't want to go too long, but I got a few things for us to talk about that I thought were important.
Let's go.
One of them we kind of hit on, knowing when to be what to your child. It's very important, knowing when to be what to your child. The relationship is like a disco dance. It changes depending on the age they're at. Sometimes they want things early that you have to hold back till they're old enough to handle. Sometimes you want things early from them and you don't understand. You don't understand why he doesn't think like that. He's not your age. And so in order to raise a kid and understand them, and you're 40 and he's 19, you can't think like a 40-year-old and talk to a 19-year-old. You have to go back and remember what you were like at 19 to understand how he processes things at that age. There's a natural narcissism that goes along with youth where they're self-centered. It's about me, and especially in adolescence, it's about me. It's about my niece. Why did you do this to me? And you did that to me and that other to me. But that goes along with that age and that stage. You can't go out and slit your wrist because your 17-year-old child said something to you that was painful. It hurts. It hurts real bad. But you have to suck it up and be the bigger person because you're after a long-term goal of being effective in their life. And this is a lifelong relationship. It's going to go on all the way to your grave. And if you're lucky enough to die first, a lot of things they won't understand about you until they try to be you. I can remember your sisters holding on to my leg when I was going out the door to go speak, crying, saying, Daddy, don't go. And they would just be mortally wounded because I was leaving to go out to go speak. And the ones who held on to my leg the most, which incidentally you never did, the ones who incidentally held on to my legs the most and cried and said, Daddy, don't go, are the ones who are on the road preaching now. Okay. Yeah. And I think, oh no, not you. Not you. But it takes them a while when they try to be you. They get a much better understanding of what it costs you to be you. And it was with each generation. I have 3 generations of children. Each generation we went through this process because they didn't think that I was going to make a living. All they thought was I was leaving them. You're leaving me. You're leaving narcissism. You're leaving me. And I told my oldest boys, I said, I was trying to explain to them why I had to go. And that was our major source of living. And so when I came back home back then, they give you a little brown bag with some money in it. And so I came in off the road trying to appease them and make them understand that I wasn't leaving them. I was going to provide for them. And I opened up the little package of money. It was just that big brown little envelope stuff with quarters and dollars and $50 bills and all kinds of stuff in it. It might have been $250 all week or $300 preaching all week. And I brought the money in, I threw it down on the floor. And I told the boys, this is your brothers, your older brothers. I said, if I go down away, the comforter cannot come. I said, you understand? And they looked at me and said, yes, sir. And they nodded and walked out the room. It was only when they got grown that they told me that Jermaine looked over at Jamar and said, who the hell is the comforter? we laughed about that for years and years and years because I thought I had straightened the whole thing out. They didn't know who the comforter was. They didn't understand what I was talking about. You're speaking two different languages. And trying to get that to level up on the same playing floor is important. I want to talk about this because I think it's important. The Bible said, whomsoever the Lord loveth, he chasteneth. But it loveth and chasteneth is what I want you to focus on. And love has to come before chastening. If you love more than you chasten, they won't be guided. If you chasten more than you love, they won't be secure. Balancing love with criticism is important. You can't be better at criticizing than you are at loving. And you can't be better at loving to the point that you're afraid to criticize because you give them a false reality. If all I told Dexter is you're wonderful, you're the best, you're the greatest, and yet I never criticized him, he would never know truth. Truth requires that I have to be able to say, that wasn't good. That didn't make any sense. That wasn't right. But you can't just say that wasn't good, because when you say that wasn't good, the kid hears I'm not good. You said it wasn't good, but the kid hears I'm not good. And so if you don't balance that with love, the chastening is verbal abuse. And I learned something else, that a father's words, good or bad, leave deep impressions. My chastening or my criticism or my frustration leaves imprints deeper than a regular person you could fight off, because what your father thinks about you affects you deeper than what other people think about you. What do you say about that?
Absolutely. I mean, I've already spoken on how the words and just the way that you've modeled things have helped to be my North Star. I do have a question though. I would like to know how you kind of struck that balance. Even though you have 5 kids, so they're totally different personalities. How did you find a way to traverse that with the different personalities?
I think you have to study your children and watch what they need and watch their ability to communicate what they need, because I have children who need love and couldn't say it. And I had to watch how they reacted. Now, for like the girls, Sarah demands it, okay? From the time she was born in the world, little girl sitting in the backseat of the car, I'm driving down the highway. She says, Daddy, I'm cold. I'd pull over to the side of the road on the interstate and take my coat off and put it around her, because she acted like she needed it. And she required it and she got it. Cora, on the other hand, never complained, never said nothing, I needed anything, but still needed everything. And it took me a while to figure out that just because they act like they're okay doesn't mean that they're okay, that they still need something from you, and you have to be intuitive enough to figure it out. And then there's pillow talk. If you're married, you and your spouse laying in the bed late at night talking about the kids, because mama sees stuff about the kids that daddy doesn't see. And her being able to be a mediator between the two, where she helps you to understand things, because she spent more time with them than I did, and helped me to understand things that I didn't understand, helped them to understand me. And if you're blessed to have a good wife, often she's a mediator between the two of you, and she's an interpreter between the two of you, and she's a peacemaker between the two of you, and she's a negotiator between the two of you. I'll let him go. It's not going to do anything. Let him go to the such a thing where I might be hard. A lot of times in our marriage, it was the other way around. I probably was more apt to let you go than your mother was. And I'd be saying, it's not that big a deal. Let him go. He's old enough to go. And she'd say, but so. So the balance between, some of the balance came from inside of me. Some of the balance came from inside my marriage, because you tend to marry your opposite. Your extroverts marry introverts, introverts marry extroverts, disciplinarians marry people who are cuddlers, cuddlers marry people who are disciplinarians, and the balance is between the two. Since there's a much larger level of single parents according to stats than I thought of, the hardest thing with being a single parent is to strike that balance of what that mother would have said. Okay. And maybe you're divorced or your wife is deceased, and particularly single parents over girls, figuring out that other part might mean talking to your mother or talking to your sister, or bringing it. When they say it takes a village to raise a child, it does. It takes a village to hold a marriage together too. I told this story in church, how I would give your mother flowers and get almost no reaction, and to the point I thought, I'm not doing that. And my sister told me, give them to her at the office so that all the other women can see the flowers coming down the aisle and wondering who gets the flowers, and it comes to her and you'll get a total different reaction. I tried that. It was right. It worked. So you don't come into this knowing how to do stuff. You learn as you go, and there has to be grace in the relationship, both between parents and the child and between the parents and the spouse. There has to be grace, because you don't get it right at the first time. And depending on your own level of dysfunction, both people are dysfunctional in some way. And what it is, what a marriage is trusting each other with that level of dysfunction, and compensating for the difference so that there's wholeness in the relationship. And ultimately that becomes that with the kid too. You begin to understand my limitations. I begin to understand your limitations. I begin to understand what you mean when you rub my head, because Dexter's a head rubber. Okay. And so he's laughing because he always rubbed my head before he leaves, and that's his way of saying I love you. He's not where he can't verbalize it. He does verbalize it, but oftentimes men communicate through nonverbal communications, and I understood what that meant, and I get what he's saying to me out of it, and vice versa. He gets that out of me as well, and so that's what builds a relationship and causes it to grow. I want to talk about this. Your daughters need you too. And your daughters need you just as much as your boys do. Now, I'm old school, and I came from the world where the man focused on the boys and the women kind of raised the girls, because you got menstrual cycles and you got all this sensitive stuff to talk about. And I kind of relegated the girls over to their mother, and I kind of focused more on the boys. But then later on, I began to realize that creates father hunger. Because if you don't pay attention to the girls, they'll find somebody who will. If you don't pay attention to the boys, they'll find some man who will. And it's all coming from father hunger and male attention and male affection and all of that. So having a father and a mother is like having a fence up around the property. It's gatekeepers, it's control. I don't have to leap the fence looking for love. When I brought you up to Chicago and dropped you off, the last thing I said to him was, don't forget who you are. You didn't have to come up here to find out who you are. You didn't go to college to find out who you are. You went to college to get an education. You don't have to join a gang. You don't have to go in a club. You don't have to do a drug deal. You don't have to end up molested to find out who you are. You know who you are. You know who your father is. You know our family stories. You know our ancestry. I taught them all of that. all the way back to Africa, who we are. You're standing on generations of generations and generations of people from Nigeria, Igbo tribes, all the way down to slavery, up through civil rights. This was your grandmother. This was your grandfather. This is who you are. This is your siblings. These are my siblings. How because what the kid is trying to find out is, where do I fit? And so a family narrative is important so that they have a sense of something beyond themselves to live up to. All of that helps me to bullseye on who am I, okay? And to be comfortable with who I am, no matter how sordid the story is. Grandma was a hooker. It doesn't matter what the story is. Giving them a story fills in a blank, okay? Defines identity, secretes self-worth. Those things are very important. I can almost sense while we're talking to you that there are some grown men listening at me saying, I didn't get that either, okay? And I need that too. And I understand that. As much as you can, go back to anybody yet living and find your story. Find out what happened, no matter how sordid it was. No matter if you're the child or the postman. Find out the story so you have a story, so that you're not running around as a blank sheet of paper for anybody to come right on or anything to come right on. Fill up your page with your story and your truth and who you are, and then don't be ashamed of your truth, because you can't get somebody to love you if you don't love yourself. So love yourself, love your story. Even if your story was, I went through 12 foster homes. I know all kinds of people who ended up lawyers and doctors and ran for office who were right out of being foster home to foster home and all kinds of stuff. It doesn't matter where you've been. It matters where you're going. Make peace with your story. If it was a bad story, look at what all you survived. Look at what all you made it through. If it was a horrendous story and you were raped and you were abused and you were molested or you were beaten all the time or you were raised by somebody who was schizophrenic and you made it, how tough are you? Celebrate that. Don't look at that as you got cheated. The way you tell yourself the story has a lot to do with how you end up. You can either look at it and say, I never knew the love of a father. I never knew the love of a mother. My mother was schizophrenic and my father was an alcoholic. My father was a drug dealer. And you can carry that in shame, or you can say, look at how far I came. My father was a drug dealer. My mother was schizophrenic. And look at me. I can hold a job. I can do this. I didn't finish school, but I worked hard every day. I didn't work hard every day, but I've been a good person to my family. Find a way to build your story in such a way that you're not always shoveling dirt backwards, trying to fill in some hole from yesterday, so that you can dig forward rather than backwards and not be caught up in the past. I want to get to another thing that I think that's real important. One of the big problems in our community centers around economics. And I told you I was talking about gray hair, pink slips, and blue pills. And I just want to talk a little bit about the pink slips. The pink slips deals with economic empowerment. I use pink slips because a lot of people are laid off right now. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people have gotten pink slips. A lot of people are trying to redefine themselves. A lot of men have given up on economics because you married somebody who makes money. Hear me real clear. Anytime you have to go to your wife and ask her, can you have a hamburger, it affects your self-esteem. You don't have to be a millionaire. You don't have to be famous. You don't have to have a yacht somewhere. But if you can buy your own hamburger, if you can get where you can get anything where you are not so vulnerable that you become a little boy in your own house, you need to do that. There's no job too small. There's no position too small. I respect anybody who will do something to to be an asset and not a liability. If you can't find any job anywhere and you can't do anything, then make yourself an asset around the house. Give your spouse and your children somebody to miss. Sometimes I come off the road and I would be tired, tired you don't even understand anything about, jet lagged, sleep broken, stressed out, worn out, but that doesn't take away from the fact that they haven't seen me for a week or 2 weeks and they're hungry for me. So there I am in the kitchen cooking. What am I doing? It's not the food, it's the memory. Give them an asset, something to talk about. Right now, today, if I go in that kitchen and start cooking, cars will start showing up in my driveway. The kid, daddy's cooking, it'll go out on a text. And they're, and all of y'all will come running over there to eat. Find some way to be an asset, men, to everybody on your job, in your church, in your family, not necessarily in that order. Find a way to be an asset to anything you join. Anything you join ought to be better because you're in it. Because the only number that's not an asset is a zero. And you never want to be a zero in anybody's life. I don't care if you have to wash clothes and fold them. I don't care if you have to clean the house. I don't care if you have to cook. Find a way to be an asset. Give them something to miss. I was talking to Bakari Sellers, and he said a statement. I told him I was going to use it. He said, I'm through working on my resume. I'm working on my obituary. And what that means when you're young, you're working on your resume because you're trying to prove who you are and define who you are and move forward in your life. You come to a certain point that you're no longer trying to prove who you are. You know who you are. You're working on things for people to miss when you're gone. Make people miss you. Because if you were here, I want you to write this down. I want you to write down what you want them to say about you. If Fred was here, I would get blank. It's a way of asking, what do people get when they get you? What do you bring to the table when you walk in the room? When you join your church, how is that church strengthened because you're there? When you took that job, what would they miss if you didn't come to work tomorrow? When you married that woman, what do you bring to the table? Not what do you take, what do you bring to the table that she would not get if you were not there? With your children, what will they miss about you? What will they stand over top of you when they roll you into church and give them something to cry about? And it's your job to do that. It's your responsibility to do that. Even if it's just support, your wife can be the attorney general and you can be a janitor. But the attorney general can come home and say, you were my safe place. Your arms held me. You listened at my stories. You wiped my tears away. You ran my bath water. Oh my God, I miss you. The only time I got to feel like a woman was when I was with you. All day long, I felt like an attorney. But when I came home to you, you made me feel like a queen. You could fill in the blank however your gifts will allow you to fill in the blank. But every person, every human being has something to give. Rather than complaining about what you're not getting, focus on what you're giving and give that. And give that, whether they clap or not, whether they acknowledge it or not, you want to be an asset and not a liability. Did we miss anything that you thought was important to talk about?
Keeping the main thing. In terms of prioritizing, whether it is spiritually, professionally, or personally, just keeping those most important things at the forefront of your mind.
Okay, so What are your core values?
Yes, sir.
Determine what your core values are, the things that are most important to you, and focus on the main thing, and don't get distracted by other things. Those things are very important. What you will do, what I care most about, what's most important to me. I don't expect anybody to be everything. Everybody's going to disappoint you. They're going to disappoint themselves. That's part of the human experience. It's part of the beauty of being human. It's the flaws. If you took all the flaws away, we would be computers. So the beauty is in the flaws and in the creativity and in the gap and the space between. But what are your core values, your must-haves, your essential things that you must have in order to be whole and be happy and be contented in a home, and keep the main thing the main thing. Sometimes it's defined by your values, and sometimes it's defined by what you won't do. I've done a lot of things. I made a lot of mistakes, but here are 3 things that I just will not do. All of that starts to give a picture of who we get when we get you.
And how did you do that? Because you do a lot in keeping the main thing. Well, first off, what are those main things for you, and how do you prioritize that?
Loyalty would definitely be one of them. I am extremely loyal, sometimes to a fault, but I'm extremely loyal. I give it and I expect it. And if a person's not loyal, that's a deal breaker to me. Betrayal is a deal breaker to me. You can confront me, you can disagree with me, but do it to me. You do it about me, and now you're suspect. Okay, I don't want to be a tyrant that won't listen to anybody. I will listen to a lot of people. In the multitude of counsel, there's safety. That's another core value for me. I will ask you, what do you think? Yeah, you know this. You know, that's gonna be the first. That's gonna be the first text he gets from me if it comes at 1 o'clock in the morning. If we went to the same event, I'm gonna text him in the car and say, "What do you think?" One, I want him to think. I'm telling him think. Number 2, I want to know, what do you think? He may have a perspective that I didn't think of that enhances what I'm getting ready to do. So never be so smart that you won't listen to people. Build a team around you of people that you can get counsel from. That's very, very important. Having somebody to call. If the house catches on fire, you know what number to call. If somebody's breaking in the window, you know what number to call. But when you got a problem in your life, do you have a number to call? Develop a few numbers of people who excel or are smart or bright enough or wise enough or prayerful enough. I like all of the above. Not always in the same person. Sometimes the person that I call to pray for me is not the person I call to get legal advice from or business advice from. But I may call all 4 of them before it's over. Okay, the business person, the legal person, and the person be praying for me. I'm getting ready to make a decision. I think that's important. Those are some of the values. When the rubber meets the road, I'm going to be there for my family. And I'm going to be there for my family, but I am not so much there for my family that I won't correct a family person because they're my family. I will make tough decisions about my family, but after I make the tough decision, I'm still going to make sure you're okay. I will literally fire you, but you can still come to the house and get something to eat, okay? Because those are 2 different things. Jobs are based on performance. Family is based on relationship. And those are 2 different things. One of the values that I have developed in the last 10 years is I have learned that my presence was more important than my presence. That giving you stuff is not as important as giving you me. And giving you me means sometimes cutting off the phone, shutting off the computer, and being present in the moment with you. That my wife values that more than she values gifts. That my kids value that more than they value stuff. You all taught me that. You taught me that was important. I didn't know that was important. And not knowing that is important is a hidden form of low self-esteem. Sometimes people who give you a lot of stuff give you stuff so that because they think that the only thing valuable they have is stuff. I had to learn that just me being there doing absolutely nothing was valuable. I took your mother for a drive yesterday. I said, let's just go for a drive. And we went for a drive. We went uptown and we rode around and around and around. You would have thought I bought her a fur coat. Yeah. We were driving around listening to me. We didn't even get out the car. And we drove all around and all up alleys and creeks and rivers and dales and came on back home, and she was happy as a jaybird in whistling time. Just presence, being there in the moment. My family has taught me to value that and to make that a priority in my life. Financial security is very important because I have been broken. My lights have been off, and my water's been off, and my car's been repossessed, and I've been through so many things along the way. Security, economic security is important, and it's something I tried to pass off to you. And it's one of the points I wanted to touch on. Don't exclude your kids from business. Let them be in the room, even if they don't look like they're paying attention. Let them be in the room while you're doing business to find out what are taxes, what is business? How do you conduct yourself when you talk to business people? What is the language in a boardroom? What is the language when you're going to the bank? Take them to the bank to apply for the loan, to get the house. Take your kids with you. Let them hear it. Let them hear the process. Let them see how many papers you got to sign. Expose them, because one of the deficits, particularly in our community, we were the first people to come to this country with a sign up that said we'll work for food. That sign was slavery. For almost 400 years, we worked in fields, in textile mills, in cotton fields, picking greens and peas. Okay, so after 400 years of not having to deal with the economy, then we were emancipated. And then we had a job, low-paying job, but we had a job. What is money? That question, what is money, is still hanging over the heads of many African Americans. What is the stock market? What is a 401k? What is a mutual fund? What is an IRA? We don't really know a lot about economics. So we can be surviving, but not thriving, because money is still a stranger in our house. It's a generational curse. And you break it by educating yourself and educating your children. The first thing my mother did I'm trying to think how old I was. I might have been 6 or 7 when my mother took me downtown on the bus to Canal Valley Bank and got me a passbook savings account. And I had a savings account with my name on it. And back then it came in a book, and I had a little name and a savings account. And I might have had $10 in it. Okay. And that back then, that was a lot of money. I might have had $10 in it. I might have opened it up with $5. But economic education starts early, where you start learning. She didn't teach me to value name brands. So to this day, when I'm wearing something, it might be a name brand, but I often forget the name of the brand because I don't value name brands. I buy nice things. I wear nice things. I got Gucci's. I got Yves Saint Laurent. I got all kinds of stuff, but I may not know which one of them it is when I put it on, because that's not what I value. But I know exactly what I got in investments. I know exactly what I got in retirement. I know exactly what I owe to pay off this house. I know business. And passing that on to you to be responsible, to handle business, to do your, I always say it this way, it's very elementary, but it's very important, to do your gotta do's before you do your wanna do's. Because a Jewish friend said this to me years ago. He said, the problem with your community is that you buy what you want and beg what you need. So we like to look like we got stuff, even if we don't. So we will buy what we want to make the right impression. And then when the rent becomes due, we will borrow or beg for the rent and the food. So do your gotta do's before you do your want to do, getting your priorities straight. Those are core values that I think are very, very important. So you get your priorities straight, and in order to get your priorities straight and start developing a savings, you have to separate your money. So the money that's in your operating account, you set up an operational account for your bills. And then you set up a separate account for your savings. Because if you put them both together, you're going to always eat up your savings. If you start a business, don't mix your business account with your home operating account. You'll never see profitability. Separate those things. Separate everything from everything. Get everything separate. The first thing God did when he created the earth was separate the firmaments above the water from the firmaments that were beneath. The stars go here. The sun goes there. In business, you separate everything into categories. Once you separate them into categories, they become a lot more manageable. And you can look at them and say, I got this over here, I got that over here. When I spin through this, I got an untouchable over here. If you're not dead, okay, or dying, you don't get into this over there. I don't care if it's $150. You got to have something over there you don't touch. Okay, understanding those sorts of things, fathers having those kinds of conversations with their sons, pastors having those kinds of conversations with their members, helps a lot of black pain to go away. Won't take all of it away, but it takes a lot of it away. I'll show you what I mean. There are a lot of people that have the histories that we do. They came in this country disrespected. They were not appreciated and they were not valued. They didn't even speak the language that we spoke. They're historically, if you go back to American history, there are a lot of people that have been ostracized and alienated because they were from different ethnic groups and different societies and different languages. And yet they are not as wounded as we are. Now, this is more complicated than this. It's not just about money, but a lot of the healing that they have is that they had good financial strategies. They pulled themselves up effectively, and they were still not waiting at the back door of the master's house for approval in order to build a future. You'd be surprised how some of those problems dissipate when you're not desperate, when you're not as needy, when you're not as vulnerable, because above black and white is often green. And so having a stable environment makes a woman feel more secure, makes her appreciate you more, because you have a financial strategy. She feels like he's got me. You've got, in the process, you've got security. In the process, you've got discipline. In the process, you've got strategy, discipline, security, and strategy. You've got 3 walls already built around your house. And the 4th one is consistency. And if you build those 4 walls around your house, everybody who loves you will live in those 4 walls. Okay? So you build that out. And that's important, whether you're starting like you are into your own family and your own life, you got to have that discipline. You cannot just spend everything and buy what you want, and then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to pay. No. I'm going to do my gotta do's, then I'm going to do my wanna do's, okay? So that if I run out, I'm going to run out on the wanna do's and not on the gotta do's. Even if I have to break my mortgage payment in half, which is important to do anyway, because if you break your mortgage payment in half, you cut into the principal more and they get less interest. So if your mortgage payment is $1,200, and say your paycheck is every 2 weeks is $1,200. Well, if you pay the $1,200, you don't have food money. You need to pay $600 and then pay $600, and you want that second $600, you want it to be toward the next $1,200, because every dollar that you pay toward the mortgage that is not required by the due date goes right to the principal and bypasses the interest. Those sorts of things. Teaching that to our children is important. We don't talk to our children about money, so they don't know what to do with it. When they get it, they spend it. When we get it, we spend it. It's part of the will work for food syndrome. The more you can educate yourself, and don't wait till you get money to educate yourself. Educate yourself about it before you get it. Guess what that does to you? It says, I expect to get it. I plan to get it. I'm making room to get it. I'm learning the language of it. I'm not foreign to it. It's not strange to me. Creating a space in your life for prosperity starts in your head, not in your wallet. As a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. So you get wealthy in your head before you get wealthy in your wallet. You read things about business. You Google things about business. If they're talking business and you don't know what it means, you look it up because you're not planning to be broke. Let broke be a surprise. Let hunger be a surprise, not an expectation. Those kinds of conversations are important. We almost forgot we were talking to you. But you got to hear fathers and sons talking and sharing. I hope it has been valuable to you in some way. I hope it strengthens you in some way. To those of you that are rebuilding yourself financially and you've been in a pink slip situation and you might be in a survival mode right now and you can't even begin to rebuild. You're just trying to survive till you get back up on your feet. That's okay. But don't you tell yourself you won't be back. Don't you tell yourself you won't get up. You may be delayed, but you're not denied. And start planning your strategy of what you're going to do when you get up and where you're going to get up and in which way you're going to get up. What did you learn when you were up that you can use to pull yourself up? Who did you meet? Who do you know? What circles do you need to be in? And your greatest resource are your relationships, not your checkbooks. So your relationships with people who have influence, who are doing something, who are motivated. They don't have to be famous. They don't have to be on TV. They don't have to be millionaires. Upwardly mobile. Somebody who's thinking about getting up. Somebody who's interested in getting up. You want to have relationships with people who are going your way. Dexter can't get in my car if I'm going to Alabama and he's going to New York. You want people in your car who are going in your direction, whether they have gotten there or not, because you learn from each other, iron sharpeneth iron, and you get better at what you're trying to be. So we'll stop there. It's been fun. Any parting words for the younger men? I want you to talk to the younger men that are watching us that are see my gray hair and figure I don't get it. I want you to talk to the younger man about being a young man with a vision, about being a young man with a dream. What are you thinking? What are you planning as a young man? What's on your mind as a young man? What do you think about? Most young men your age, I never will forget, I took you out of the country one time and we were in Paris. And as soon as we got to Paris, I thought, oh, Lord, I'm going to have trouble keeping my hands on him because we are in Paris. He's never been in Paris before, and he's going to be out there wanting to hit the streets as soon as I go to sleep and party. And where was the first place you wanted to go?
The Louvre Museum.
He wanted to go to the Louvre Museum. And I am in the museum following him, running around the museum as he's taking pictures of all of this art and all of this history, and I'm teary-eyed. I'm teary-eyed that my investment in him was well spent. Okay? He never once mentioned all the things that I would expect a 20-year-old guy to mention. Not once. His hunger was in a different direction. As a young man, talk to the young men. You counsel young men. Talk to them about what they should be hoping for, what they should be planning on, what they should be going after right now.
Right now, I would be asking myself, how can I structure my life to prepare me for wherever God is about to take me? The Bible talks about how all things work together for the good of those that love the Lord. How can I use all of the things, all of the experiences, all of the people that I've encountered to inform my destiny? My father has told me this story about how Australia is largely uninhabited, save for the parts of Australia that are on the outskirts. But he always encouraged me to find the deeper part within myself, find my Australia, to go into those places that are uninhabited, and to have new experiences, to meet new people. And within that, you find your destiny. As a young man, particularly as a Black young man, we're inundated with lots of images that want to make us feel inferior. But this is a time where we can go really dig deep into our own humanity. We can go out there and really support each other in a way that we never could. If you see another young man next to you, find a way to empathize with them. And if you can, help to elevate their mindset, pour into each other the best way that you can. In there, you find your purpose. That's how you find your Australia. Just keep on living your life. You may not have all of the answers today. A lot of you certainly won't. We deal with the level of uncertainty on a daily basis. But what are those experiences that you can use to push you forward? That's what I want to tell you right now. To keep hope. Though you are living in uncertainty, know that all things work together. All things.
That's excellent. That's excellent. When you talk to young men today, what do you think some of their biggest pains are?
A lot of it comes from fatherlessness, or in another way, just not having anyone that believes in them point blank, period. A lot of my young friends just feel directionless. That is like a job security, particularly now. There's just a level of uncertainty that I believe is inherent to a young man, but particularly now. There is nothing certain. Tomorrow we really don't know what is going to come. If you would have asked me in January what my April was going to be like, I would have been completely wrong. And I'm certainly a planner, but just
as a matter of confession, everything I had planned blew up too. I didn't see COVID-19 coming a mile away. I didn't see what it would do to our economy. I didn't see what it would do to us physically. I didn't see this whole racial revolution. I didn't see a lot of things happen that uprooted all of my plans. I mean, when I say all of them, I mean, I got cold chills sitting here at I had so many major things that I had put like several years of work into building up to that were going to detonate this year that all fell apart, completely apart. But I'm not discouraged and I'm not weary in well-doing. I had to reboot, replan, reorganize, move things around, put this on the internet, do it through cyberspace, do it over here, do it over there, tread water till I get to another place. I'm still making plans. I may have to readjust those plans. I may have to readjust them again, but I will have a plan to readjust. Mm-hmm. I will never be without a plan. I will never be without a plan. I may have to readjust the plan. I may have to redo the plan. I may have to completely remodel the plan, but I will never be without a plan because there will never be prosperity to people who are planless. The plan is my wallet. It is my backup. You have to plan to be blessed. You have to plan to be forward. You have to have a strategy for it. Then if you readjust the strategy, that's okay. Build another one. And if that one falls apart, build another one. All the way down to the end. Always have something in your head in front of you. Nobody in the world committed suicide who had a plan. Nobody. There's no way in the world. I never will forget. I'll tell you this right quick and I'll let you go. I was learning this from a psychologist. We were working together on somebody who was suicidal. And the woman said, I'm going to commit suicide. And I was working with her. And finally the psychologist said, you're not going to commit suicide. So what's really eating at you? The girl said, how do you know what I'm going to do? She said, you got your nails done. You fix your hair. You're not going to commit suicide when you still have self-esteem. You're not going to commit suicide when you still have strategy. You're not going to commit suicide if you're building a structure. If you want to drive depression out of your heart, start building a plan for tomorrow. And if it tears apart, build one for next week. And if it tears apart, build one for 6 months from now. But nobody kills themselves with a strategy. And so the thing that I say to both young and old men is keep strategizing, keep planning. Oh, it's going to take another year now. Oh, we're going to have to move it 9 months away. But don't give it up. I may have to move it again, but don't give it up. Don't give it up. Because as long as the horse sees a carrot in front of him, he'll keep trotting. Take that carrot away, and the race is over. And that carrot in front of us is what gets us out of the bed in the morning. And to young men and old, have something in front of you that's worth running for. You know, don't let the goal be something that's beneath you. Have something in front of you that's worth running for. Have something in front of you that kind of scares you. Mm-hmm. Because if it's a little bit scary, it's so sexy. If it's a little bit scary, you'll bathe for it, you'll clean up for it, you'll shave for it, you'll dress for it. If it's a little bit scary, you'll bring your A game after it. If it's a little bit scary, you'll pray about it. Your faith has a hope to attach itself to. Faith is the substance of the thing you hope for. If it's not scary, it's not worthy of your best. And you'll do it any kind of way. But if you're a little bit scared, I fight better when I'm scared. See, a lot of people get in a fight and they talk about how bad they are. I'm not bad, I'm scared. I'm telling you right now, I'm scared. So all you bad people out there, understand this, I am scared. So a scared person doesn't risk losing. A scared person will come to the fight prepared. A scared person will do real damage to you real fast. Because they're scared. And as that is in fighting, that is in life also. If you don't have something that scares you a little bit, you don't study for it. You don't prepare for it. You say, oh, I'll be all right. I can do that in my sleep. No. You want something that keeps you up at night, that makes you pray for, that makes you wrestle with, that makes it worth your sacrifice to win it. I can't tell you what your it is, because what my it is and what your it is may be two different things. And what I told you when you went to school, and you said to me, Daddy, suppose I go to school and I come out with this degree in music engineering, and it is not the thing that I was created to do. And I told you sitting at the kitchen table, I said, don't worry about that. If that is not it, it will be the thing that leads to the thing. And that was true, and it's still true. And there's another thing in front of the thing you're doing now. Always have a thing in front of you. While you're doing this thing, always have that thing out in front of you, because this thing is the catalyst that puts you in the room for the next thing. Okay? So that's for you, and that's for you, and that's for the fathers, and that's for the son, and that's for everybody. It's your thing, baby. Go for it. We love you.